Welcome to the Better Than Me podcast with John Conover, where we get to interview business leaders and success stories. And you, as the audience, you get to learn right alongside of me, take notes, and develop maybe your own personal philosophy and pick up tips and ideas about what it means to be in business for yourself. And so today I have another repeat guest, and I love having repeat guests on the show because, in the first episode with a guest, we do a lot of unpacking their story. You, as the audience, get to know them. And now we get into the nitty gritties. We get into the fun stuff and we get to unpack some topics on a detailed level. And so I have the privilege of having our repeat guest, Andre Young, CEO and founder of You Evolving Now, author and speaker. And so today, Andre, first, thanks for being on for a second time. And the topic for today is right up your alley, and it is self-leadership, leading self. So there it is. The ball is on a tee. Swing away.
Oh, no, I definitely appreciate that. Thank you for having me. You guys listening, thank you for a second round and dose of me. Self-leadership, I call it personal leadership. It's huge. And I tell people all the time, especially from on stage or companies bring me in to do trainings. I say, look, I break leadership down into two different parts. And it's so important because so many people focus on the first part. I said, we can all load up in your car, John, and we can go to Barnes & Noble. There's always one about 10 minutes away. And we can go to the leadership aisle, and there's hundreds of books on leadership. You could go to Amazon.com. Don't do it right now while you're listening. And you can get millions of content on leadership. And I'm like, but we got to, before you do the daily things it takes to effectively lead a team in business, you got to do personal leadership. Personal leadership all revolves around how you show up, how we choose to show up to our life, to our work, and into our relationships in a way that makes people want to follow us because they enjoy how you are and who you are.
And Dre,
personal leadership, it yields more connection, and people will do more for you and with you because they have a great connection with you.
Well, and what's interesting, so the bridge we're gonna talk about for sure. I'd love to get your comments on this from a business standpoint. I think a lot of people they're tuning in and they're going, "Oh, I want to learn more about business." And there's a saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. Whether or not that's true, what I believe is how you show up in life, how you show up in relationships. It's going to have some effect on how you show up in business. And the same person that enters relationships in life, that same person decides to start a business. You're not two different people. Right. And so at the end of the day, learning self-leadership is going to affect these things. But where this topic came from, I think for me, the desire to talk, probably the inspiration for the topic came from so many people that maybe go into business. They think it's product, it's service, it's marketing, which all important stuff.
Absolutely.
But they step off the boat, so to speak, and they go, all right, I've been an employee for 15 years in a field. I showed up Monday morning at 8 a.m. I left at 5 p.m. on Friday. And for 5 days, 40 hours, somebody else told me what to do. Yeah. And I think for some people, they get sick of that. And they're like, I got to go into business for myself. But when you go into business for yourself, and now nobody's telling you what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the good news is you're in charge. The bad news is you're in charge.
Well, I do work with people sometimes. They reach out and say, hey, can you mentor me? Or this is what I want to do, or I want to do what you do. I say, great. Well, number one, you're going to be a solopreneur. Let's start with solopreneurs. It's only you in this business. As John mentioned, when you wake up the next day, you got a clean slate. There's nothing there. What are you going to do? Because you got to do all of these things before money comes in. They don't give checks for nothing. So my thing is, do you have a notebook? Do you have it by your office, right where your computer is going to be, or wherever your job is going to be for yourself? I know for me, it takes at least 15 things for me to effectively lead and run my business that day. So for you, it might not be 15 yet, but what's on your list, for example? And I call it my get to do. You don't have to do, you get to do this. But number one, for me in my business, I know I need to post. So that's the first thing on there. When I wake up, I post. I will never take that away from me and automate that, because what it does for the world, it does for me. So that's something big. Wow. Well, I know I need to check my emails. I have a business. People are reaching out, hopefully. So I need to check my emails. For me, I need to look at LinkedIn. I need to make connections on LinkedIn or network. However you're going to choose the network, I need to have that there. And so forth and so forth and so forth. So before you've sold anything, what are you doing about your business? And I'll go back a little bit further, because how do you then come up with this list? How do you even know what goes on your list? This is very not sexy. Okay, I tell companies around the world, everybody likes the 5 types of this or that. That's all of the sexy stuff. The non-sexy thing is your vision and vision factors. You're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, or a leader at an organization. What's your vision? My vision is to be the world's best leadership speaker in my space, getting, impacting the world and getting wealthy in time and money with ideas I create in the company that I run. That's my vision. It sounds cute. And that's all it is, because it's a starting point, not an ending point. Most people think they have a vision and they got it. No. What are your vision factors? The 3 to 5 things that when you do them consistently, the vision has to come true. So for me, it's I need to create great products, whether that's articles, videos, online courses. I need to create products that people want. Number 2, I need to network appropriately. Where are my people and how do they want to receive what I have? And then lastly, I need to create passive income opportunities. So when you look at that list, those vision factors allow me to know what goes on my list and where I spend my time. So yes, I need to post. I need to create videos to post. So maybe you need to create videos. Maybe you need to be writing once or whatever. Then you need to network. Where are your people? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Facebook? Are you going to be going to networking events where you and I met? These are the things, once you know your vision factors, that start to fill your list. So now every single thing you're doing is making your yeses powerful and your nos meaningful.
Whoa. All right. So if I don't stop you now, then everyone's going to have to digest, one of your entire books, like right now. Like there's so many gems in there. I'm over here scribbling, like I'm jotting down notes, because one of the things I've learned is you have to think in ink. You have to be a note taker. When you said notebook, I went, well, here we go. I got my pen. I'm ready. Over here taking notes, and it's ideas, it's to-do lists. And the checklist thing is interesting. I was speaking at an event on Saturday, and my whole topic was checklists and check-ins. And this idea, Dre, was if I'm going to build out the checklist for myself every day, which I do. I have a daily checklist as well. It's amazing how you and I don't script this, and yet the common denominators of successful people, like they just kind of do the same things. They just start to figure it out. And so I've got this checklist, but then if I don't check in on the checklist, right, I get to the end of the day and I had 15 things on there and 13 of them got a check by them. Well, was that a failure of a day? I don't know. If I have too many days, though, where I only have 3 things checked and I had 15 things, I'm probably not getting where I need to go. So for me, the check in at the end of the day on my checklist that I built at the beginning of the day is super important. So get your comment on that in a second. And then for those of you that are looking for a colorful way to think about this, I like going I like calling it the to-do list, and I want to make it a to-done list.
I love it.
Go from to-do to done. And then what you said also towards the end there that I want people to pick up on is there is a level, you lose a level of predictability in your income when you go into business because you don't have the biweekly paycheck. And I wouldn't mind having an income that is unpredictably high, but still the unpredictability is somewhat annoying when you're getting started. And so there's this phrase I like to throw out to people to let them chew on the idea of that checklist ought to take your business from possibility to probability.
Ooh.
Okay. So if I can go, look, it's possible I'm going to win in business, but if I have a list of things, what's that list of things that if I do it, now it's highly probable that I get the outcome that I want. What are your comments on that?
My thoughts is we have to take our list one step further to take it from possible to probable. I love that. You heard my woo there. That was great. Here's the pro and concern of having a list. The pro is whether your list is 4 things long or 20 things long, the list will never stop growing. So the positive is you have crossed things off your list. And if you're a type A person, there is joy, there is satisfaction in crossing things off your list. But we must know the list will never stop growing. It's okay you got 13 out of 15. It's going to drip on to the next day anyway. That's fine. What we fail to do as leaders is recognize our wins. So I suggest everybody, you have your list, but at the top of your page, at the top of that list, you want to write wins, W-I-N-S, wins. I may have 15 things on my list, but I typically only have 2 to 3 wins for the day. And if anything gets crossed off my list, the wins do. So for example, my big wins every day that I really put on there is get one person from LinkedIn to accept a Zoom call with me. Whatever calls I have that day, let's say I average 2 to 3, 4 calls a day regarding business, to close 1 or 2 of them. And then now I just launched a leadership academy for people that are not involved in organizations. Can I get one person to inquire about that? So that's my 3 wins. So I might have a list of 15. All 15 gets crossed off. 10 gets crossed off. Okay. What about my wins? What about your wins? So it means you know what your wins are for the day. And if once you start adding people to your team, or if you have a team, do you know what theirs are? Do they know what theirs are? Because you want everybody winning. Winning becomes as addictive as losing. But if you're not monitoring the wins, and as a solopreneur, nobody knows when you win but you. So you better know what the wins are so you can pat yourself on the back or get a celebratory drink or cigar or handshake with yourself in the mirror.
Okay. Part of self-leadership is self-management, emotional intelligence, managing your own emotions through this process, because entrepreneurship's a roller coaster. And you just said something that probably needs more comments. When you're a solopreneur, which that one's going to get borrowed, no one knows about your wins but you, can be almost as depressing as losing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if celebrating on your own is even a good thing sometimes. Where's that circle of friends? Where's that circle of influence, that peer group that, hey, part of self-leadership is know thyself.
Yeah.
Do you need a circle of people? Oh, I don't need anybody. BS. Do you have a circle of people that are rooting for you to win, that when you do get that win, what gets you up the next day moving forward is you did just have a meaningful celebration of something that was really big in your business. And you got to share that with somebody.
Well, I'm going to tell you, you better have a group of people, like because here's a hard leadership truth, a hard solopreneur and entrepreneur truth. We all want, as a solopreneur or entrepreneur, our family, our husband, our wife, our kids to really believe in us and revel in our success and support us and be there. Do you know how rare that can be, though, when you leave a job where you're getting paid once every 2 weeks and you're asking everybody to believe in a vision that they didn't have, that they can't see? Now, they're going to see your struggle. Some of them will not believe. Some of them will say, hey, they're more worried about protection. And it doesn't mean that they don't love you. It doesn't mean that they're hating on you. It means that they have some fear and they can't see. They weren't given the vision. So when you are struggling, you may have to be the only person in a little while that believes in you for a while. And that's okay. When you share your success, you are also inviting some shoulds. So you share your success with your family and friends. It could be taken, okay, well, now you have some money, now we can do this. Or now you got some of this, so now can I have this? Or now you got some of this, and you should make sure you do this. You like to egg on it. Like, I just wanted to tell you I just got that deal or did that.
It doesn't mean you get a new Gucci bag.
Whether it's a Gucci bag or your dad or your mom in an old school way trying to protect you, or maybe you owe some money. Maybe your significant other has been fronting the bills for a while. So you're inviting a lot of shoulds. And I'm not saying, please do not misunderstand me and say don't share your positives with family and friends. What I'm saying is have a group, a peer group, hopefully of other entrepreneurs that can really be happy for you. They don't want anything from you. They're not competing with you. They really get to understand the pitfalls and the joys, the peaks and the valleys of succeeding and running a daily business like that. And all they want to do is say, wow, good for you. That is awesome. Have you thought about this as an idea? This is what I did when this happened. And now you can really, really celebrate, and it reduces so many shoulds. So I'm not saying don't tell your family. What I'm saying is telling your family and friends and who you think you should tell, you may not get the reaction that you desire.
Well, and that's a role that you and our good friend John Beebe, I think and even Justin Shank, who I've had all of you on this show, and you're like, well, John, how do you come up with the list of people to have on your episode? It's my circle to start with, like exactly what you and I are talking about. It's that circle of people where you and I have gone and grabbed a cigar and we've celebrated your wins. We've celebrated my wins. We've also not celebrated. We've gotten together to vent about losses, and it could be personal or business. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes your business is doing great. Personal life is chaos. And sometimes personal life, your physical health, everything's great, but you just want your business to go to another level. And so sometimes that circle of friends, they become more than just business peers. How do you think, not that, how you have those rare moments where everything's clicking on all cylinders and you're like, you're like scared to go to bed at night because you're like, when I wake up tomorrow morning, it won't be like this again. That's rare. What are some of the, when you think about your personal life and the personal leadership with leading self, what are some of the disciplines or routines or habits that you've created that you think have helped you in your personal life, which then obviously, worked its way into business?
Oh, absolutely. There's 5 big areas for me that I find that when all of them are clicking, life is fantastic. Like you mentioned, that's going to happen sometimes, and you enjoy the heck out of that roller coaster. And there's going to be other times where, you're lacking in some. So here's the 5. 1, spirituality. How are you doing spiritually? How are you doing physically? How are you doing mentally, relationally? And then the last one was it financially.
Financially, business success, yeah.
So when I look at, let me just go through them quick, so spiritually, no matter what you believe in, my big thing is, can you please believe in something that's bigger than you?
Amen.
And whatever that thing is, if it allows you to live a better life and take care of you and magnify other people, and that's a good thing. So everybody does that differently. I'll be very blunt. My wife and I were going to church together. I started to say, listen, I love what we're doing, but I'm not like what I'm getting all the time. So I started saying, okay, I'm going to do church at my house. And there's pastors that I really love listening to. Now I have my notebook. I take notes. I say my prayer. I have my plan. And I just shared with my wife this morning, I still like to go to church with you once a month.
There you go.
I think it's good for our relationship. It's good that our daughter gets to see it. It's good for everything. There's nothing bad that comes out of me going to church with my wife once a month. But if I went every week out the month, it's not for me. So I have my own church that I do at my home, and then I do that with her. I have found spiritually that has really, really provided peace and impact in my life.
Great. Real quick, because we could camp on a couple of these. I think most people would probably overlook. I think spirituality being one of them. I grew up in a very religious home. So this one actually means a lot to me in identifying what part this plays in my life. And when I think of spirituality, it's the part of you, the real you, that experiences all the parts of life. So the intangibles that can very easily get affected by having your spirituality thrown off. I think of things like gratitude. I think of things like emotional intelligence and delayed gratification. I think of things like generosity. I think of things like honesty and integrity. And I'm like, you know what parts of my true self, if someone really cut me open and looked at the real me, not the one that's presented, that's my spirituality. That's my spirit. That's me. And if I let that decay and decline, it's only a matter of time before the rest of it gets thrown off. I think.
Well, for me, and I'll add in, everybody believes what they believe. I believe in God, and sometimes God would want you to do what you don't want. I want to do this. What would God have me do? Okay, because I might want to retaliate. I might want to say this, or well, if this, then that. No, what would? So, and then I focus on that, and that really is special. And sometimes you got to be able to give your issues to somebody else for a minute. You know what I mean? Because right now I've done all I can, and all I feel is not helping the situation. So, I believe for me, spirituality plays a huge part in that. Financially, people look, as an entrepreneur, solopreneur, or in business, no matter what you're doing and how you're making money, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. So financially, what are you doing with the money that you're making? Or is it multiplying? Are you sending your money to the gym, or is it in the couch, elbows deep in a bag of chips?
Put it to rest or put it to work.
Right. So for financially, what are your goals? And you mentioned this. What are your standards and what are your goals? So my standard is to always make more than what I made last year. That's a standard. My goal is I have a certain number. What does it take for me to do that? But then what am I doing with the money? So now I can feel like I'm having, I have peace. We can play, but I also have my future taken care of. Physically, I go to the gym. People say, well, you go to the gym every day? No, I do 4 days a week. And
it just looks like you go to the gym every day.
But it's the power of consistency. My body I know what I need. I know at 46, I'm not 26. If I go in there and try to act like I'm 26, I'm going to be hurt and be out for a month. So I figured me out. I've modified, as necessary. And I get a second wind out of going to the gym, which allows me to come home and be a better husband, a better father, more patient, a better man. And my job is to be so good coming back from it that people want me to go. That's a real skill, mentally, I read. I think, the books are where they hide all of the information. So I encourage anybody listening to this, let your kids, let your significant other, let your boss, let your employees get caught getting great. Get caught reading something, exploring something, learning something new. And then lastly, relationships. And whether that's with your significant other, whether that's with family or friends, we have talked about your circle. But if you don't put your circle, if you don't put your wife, if you don't put your husband or your kids in your calendar, we all do what's on our calendar and work around it. Are the people in your life that you say you love, are they in your calendar? Are you reaching out to say, hey, I was thinking about you. Did you schedule a date with them? And now you'll do what's in your calendar, and now it just becomes easy.
There's room for spontaneous living, I think, you could take anything to the extreme. I'm a planner. I like to think ahead. I'm a planner.
I have 4 kids and run 2 businesses. I am the least spontaneous person on the planet.
I'm there with you. I mean, I live out of this calendar. I'm like, if it ain't on the calendar, it's probably not getting done. And yet, I think a weakness for me is I resist being spontaneous, even when I'm able to. Even it's, but to your point, I think most people that are getting into business, they probably have the other problem. They wing it too much. They're not planning it out. So you and I have probably the right problem to have. Like, we're looking for space to be spontaneous occasionally. Most people need to step up their planning. The book thing you brought up, I think for our audience, just to understand, I pulled up the there it is. The Leader's Toolbox. And it says in the introduction here, the 5 points of your day. And it says, point number 1, what you consume when you wake up. You talked about all the nuggets are in the books, right? All the goodies, all the secrets, right? Organize your day was point number 2. relationship building and self-care, number 3, and how you return home. You said that about the gym. And what was your biggest accomplishment of the day? What you're explaining on this podcast episode is not even new to you. You've been talking about it for years. And to everyone's point, you guys can go look up Andre's books and many others. When he talks about your mentals, it's I believe in reading 10 pages a day. That's a routine I've developed over the years where you get through about a book a month if you average it out. So that's the mental part that I had to comment on. The financial part was something you and I were talking about this over cigars last week. And it was almost like I was the priest and you came to the confessional and you're like, I have something to confess about.
Because I feel so bad about it. Like I was so like beside myself because it's the first time I've ever done it.
We don't have to get into the details of what that was.
Yeah.
I want the let me get my rosary beads out and pray for your financial soul here. No, the what we talked about though was so profound when it comes to your leading yourself financially.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching Yellowstone, which is an amazing show for people that haven't checked it out yet. Kevin Costner, and there's in the first season he's talking to his daughter-in-law, and the phrase came up because they were talking about his grandson,
mm-hmm.
and he said, a parent's job is to think about tomorrow. And I've heard grown ass men say, I only have today. I go, yeah, but your kids don't. And so a parent's job is to think about tomorrow. But guess what? A business owner's job is to think about his clients and his employees, and they might all have tomorrows. Right. And so part of self-leadership, when we talk about the financial side, you and I talked about this last week, was I believe in part of leading yourself financially, beyond just the budgeting and spending part, there's 3 ways to invest in your future.
Yeah.
One was to grow money through compounding and to grow a nest egg. One was to invest in income producing assets that create immediate income, regardless of what their growth potential is. And the third was to invest in yourself and your business. Your immediate
can I say something?
And that was the one that you went, oh, thank God.
Because you absolved my sin. So you guys listening, I came to John and I felt, because he's my money guy. If you guys don't know, John is the money man. So he's my money guy. And I said, I feel so bad. I said, this year I made the most I've ever made. And I feel like I have invested the least. And I am so upset with myself. Now, don't get me wrong. I did my very traditional investment. I invested in my kids. I have taken care of my son. He's a quarterback, all of his training, his sports, all of that stuff. We did family vacations. Look, we had a year as a family, and most of the things that I spend are not even for me. I'll get a $30 shirt, and that's expensive for me on Amazon, and I'm good. It's not even for me. And John said, you said, sometimes investing means investing in your business and into yourself. And when I look back at the things that I actually did spend on me, besides the Amazon shirt and a couple pair of shoes, I invested in the Evolve and Lead Academy that you now will see coming out to the world. I invested in the online program that re-ups every year, that brings passive income, that now is out there in the world. I invested in my team and adding another somebody that I outsource an employee with. And so when you said that, I was like, all right, I feel a whole lot better. The money that I didn't put in traditional thought of investments, I investing in somewhere else. And the compounding interest of that will come back starting next year.
Yeah, the return on investment, you look at the return on investment. And another way of looking at, when you're leading yourself financially, you think of what was the purpose? What's the purpose of that asset, right? What problem is it solving in my life? And some people need to increase income, so they invest in income producing assets. Some people know a day is coming where they're going to need a nest egg, so they slowly drip money into something that compounds over time. And other people, they're trying to get a business launched because they know they're taking a bet on themselves. They've proven to themselves they know what they're doing in business, and they know that's a pretty high return on investment. And they're like, hey, I only live once. I want to
Well,
get this.
and it's not a one-time thing. People
Right.
think solopreneur or entrepreneur thinks, okay, the first big investment in leaving your job and putting money into it is the only time it's going to happen. It's
No.
not. You will add new products, you will rebrand, you will do different things, you will pivot. It's a constant investment, but it's not every single day. It's, you have to know and be willing to change before you have to change. That's evolution. Can you evolve before you have to?
Let's finish with this. Self-leadership in the area of relationships. I read, this is, by the way, for the audience, none of this was scripted, which is the beauty of it. I didn't email Dre with here are the 5 points. So we picked a topic and we're just running with it. But the relationship side of things, I read something the other day that this guy out there, I think it's Josh Woodward, or he's on Instagram, talks a lot about male leadership in relationships. Great guy to follow. And one of the things that popped up on my feed, because we all know Instagram is listening all the time, is he goes, most women, for example, are actually looking for not toxic masculinity. They're looking for masculinity, though, of a man who will take leadership, not charge and authority all the time, but leadership. And he's confident in who he is. He knows who he is. He's got his crap together, but he is in a place where he can lead. He's arrived at a place where he's able to lead. And for men out there, not to make this about men, but I believe in our culture today, there's actually millions of great women that are actually looking for this. They're looking for this man to show up in business, show up in the corporate world, show up at home this way, right? Show up in the relationship this way. And this might be a bias, but I believe there's actually a shortage of men who are willing to lead the way they're supposed, because that's a heavy weight. That's a very heavy weight. And there's so much distractions in our culture. There's so much room for, you can let yourself off the hook easily in our culture. You can hide in our culture. So what are your comments on, not to make it about men, but male leadership in business and relationships? And I think because of your background, Dre, you probably have some authority on the topic.
Well, I think, it's a heavy statement and there's a lot of things there. So what I would say, everything comes down to communication and connection. Communication and connection, because does everybody, whether it's a man and woman in a relationship, man and man, woman to woman, what is their definition of leadership? Everybody's first got to be on the same page. If I'm coming in as a significant other and saying, this is how I want to lead, but that's not how they want to be led, we're going to have an issue. And I get to have a professional or a personal temper tantrum of, look how much I do. But if it's not what she needs or they need, then it's going to be an issue. And so what is your significant other's definition of leadership? For some, it might be, and if you're going to talk traditionally about women, it might be security and, this and that. We also have, we talked about a certain type of man that leads. We also have a new age woman that's independent. And it's hard to lead somebody that keeps saying that they don't need anybody. So there's a lot of things. It's not just a one-side thing. It really comes down to effective communication, and also communicating through roles and transition. Because let's take person A and person B. They're in a relationship. While they're single and dating, they may have one definition of leadership, one definition of how people do money, one definition of how what the expectations are. That will change when you become boyfriend and girlfriend, or boyfriend and girlfriend and girlfriend, because there's a new expectation now with that word. Then through marriage, the expectation may change again, because now we're saying, well, my mom and dad did this, and that expectation may drip on consciously or unconsciously. And then once you become parents, it freaking changes again. Through somebody leaving their job and becoming a solopreneur, you will take a dip unless you are wealthy and coming from money already.
Right.
how does now these expectations of leadership, finances, everything now change when that changes? And then now that you become successful again, it's like, so it really comes down to I would love for my sons to come into a relationship and want to lead, be willing to lead, know how to lead, how it best fits their relationship, and provide financial security.
Yeah. And to be the type of man that somebody would want to follow. I think there's a natural, this might be an opinion too that I have, is I think there's a natural inclination woven into the DNA of a man that says, I want to lead. I don't always know how. I'm not always good at it. I struggle with insecurities in that topic, but deep down I have this desire to. And I think the majority of, and I can't speak for all of them, but probably the majority of women woven into the DNA is, I would actually like to be led by somebody I respect.
Well, I mean, I can't argue that I don't believe that to a degree. I also want to leave room for people who believe something else.
And that's fine. It's my opinion, but it's also probably built on just the general masses. There's probably exceptions to the rule all over the place.
Well, one of the things that I would want, if you were going to talk about men, one of the things that I would share with my sons, you're going to lead, you're going to allow to be, to do the leading, and you want to provide some type of financial security. You also want to partner with somebody that you're aware of their dreams and their goals. I have seen, this is not every time. Anytime you say every or all, you're wrong.
Right.
Man or woman, you go in wanting to lead. You go in and then start taking care of, I'm going to say, quote unquote, everything, whether it's the bills or this or that. If the person you are leading does not have a dream, then all that they start to do is exist. And in some point in time, you must be careful with your leading that you don't look back at that person that you've chosen, that you've taken all responsibility away from, and then start resenting them simply existing. Or that person that's now existing may start resenting you, or you're not here. Because although I don't mind you making me secure, I also have other needs. It's not all about money. Security is great, but you have to have this connection and understanding, and we all must be on the same page with our definitions of what's going on.
So regardless of who's in the relationship leading and being led and who's taking on that role, which I don't think is an authoritative role, I think it's a role that carries weight and responsibility. The key is to have the communication and the connection necessary to sustain that leadership role. And you lead yourself. So you're connected with yourself. You know how you operate, right? Your self-talk is good between the ears. That's a start. And then what you just said was a gem as far as leading yourself, but then being in a position where you are able to lead others in the relationships you have. The thing that just stood out to me is, am I fully aware of my partner, their goals, their dreams,
their goals and what they want? Because listen,
they want.
We all know that life can change in a split second.
Yep.
So if you're doing all of the one, are you doing the leading and the security because it's fulfilling your goals and ego, or is it actually helping the relationship? And if something happened to you tomorrow, are you with a partner that can take over for you? And they may not be able to take over making as much money. They may not make the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches just like you do, but they're willing, they're capable, and it's done out of love. That's really important. I mean, like sometimes, we might want to lead, and this is man or woman. We might want to lead, but for all of the wrong reasons. And leadership, I tell people this all the time, please be mindful. Never let your evolution elevate your ego. Because now you're leading, you're making the money, you got the spirituality. Yeah, you are on it. Look at you.
Right.
Look at you. And it starts to be easy to start looking down at maybe your partner, your friends, your family. Just like you had every right to change and evolve, they had every right to stay the same. You met them that way.
That's true.
So can we be mindful of where people are, what's their dream, and how does your leadership help fulfill their dream, their mission, Are we staying connected with that? And I think a lot of times throughout relationships, we start to see that deteriorate, whether it's man or woman. And that's the job, because you can be great at work and you can be great with all of these 5 things that we're doing. But if you're miserable going home and home don't want you back, that's a problem.
Like, what's the point?
What's the point?
What's the point? Wow. Trey, this has been an amazing episode. You know, I can't wait for people to go back and listen to this over and over again. I'm going to probably do a re-listen, scribble out some more notes. But this was right up your alley. I think people will be able to tell this came from a place of authenticity, and Dre's not over there having to like read off a PowerPoint to give you these nuggets today. This is who he is. This is what he's been building for decades. You know, his personal philosophy on the topic. So I want to thank you for taking time to be on here today. I appreciate you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoy.
All right. Take care.